All right, everybody, so here we go. We got Algebra 2, Unit 2, and here we're going to do Lesson 8. Now, Lesson 8 and Lesson 9, really, we're trying to practice the same thing, okay, which is factoring our trinomial. So let's review some vocabulary. So trinomial means three terms, okay? So we're factoring that trinomial. When we're talking about these in general, we're looking for a trinomial that has a degree of 2. So that first term is going to have an exponent of 2, then you're going to have that variable term, which just has x to the first power, and then you have that integer at the end. That's our standard kind of form. Remember, going from highest to lowest exponent, okay? So first thing first, we're going to do a little bit of practice to make sure we understand what our answer should look like and be able to do this in the right order. So let's start out here by multiplying out a binomial, okay? So here I see 2x plus 1 and then 4x minus 3. So if you remember, if you're asked to multiply this out, what we would do is actually just distribute the 2x times both terms and then the 1 times both terms. So once we do that, we're left with 8x squared minus 6x plus 4x minus 3. And then we're just going to combine those like terms. So the 8x squared has no like term, the negative 3 has no like term, and here I see the negative 6x plus 4x is negative 2x. So then that would be our trinomial once we had performed this operation to multiply. So let's show that with another example. So here I'm going to do x times 2x. So once I do x times 2x, I get 2x squared. I'm going to do x times negative 7, which gives me negative 7x. Then I'm going to do 5 times 2x, which gives me a positive 10x. Then I do 5 times negative 7, which gives me negative 35. Okay, from here, we're going to combine like terms, which in this case is the negative 7x and the positive 10x. So I bring the 2x squared down, the negative 7x and the positive 10x are going to combine to give me 3x, and then the negative 35 is going to come down. So I'm left with 2x squared plus 3x minus 35. That's my trinomial in standard form. So fundamentally what we're trying to do here with Lesson 8 and Lesson 9 is, can we start here and learn how to factor to go backwards? So we're going to start with this and get to that answer. Okay? All right, let's look at a couple examples. Okay, so how do we go through and do this? So first off is we're going to write the polynomial in standard form. So what's that mean? It means ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so we always went from highest to lowest exponent. So it already is in both the pre-done example and the example we're going to work for. You always want to check for a GCF. Remember, that is the first step every single time that we factor, is to factor out a GCF. Okay, now sometimes there isn't a GCF. Great, then we have an easier example. But if there is a GCF, you need to factor that out first. So you always look for it. So over here, well, they don't have a variable in common, and the first term here is a 2. So 2 doesn't go into 7, so I have no GCF. For the other example here that we're going to do together, they don't have an x in common, and these just have an implied coefficient of 1, so I can't take out GCF there. So neither of these have a GCF. Okay, so now we're going to go step by step with a pre-done example and then our example together. So step 2 is to multiply the leading coefficient, which is that term out in front of x squared, remembering that if there isn't a term there, it's implied to be a 1, okay? And the last term, the constant. So in this case, that was 2 times negative 30, okay? So 2 times negative 30. So 2 times negative 30 is negative 60. And then you need to find the numbers that are going to multiply to that and add to the middle term being that negative 7. So that negative 7 right here, okay? All right, so normally what we do is we do what's called setting up the x. So they multiply to negative 60, and they're going to add to negative 7. Okay, so let's get to that setup over here. So remember, there's no number out here, so it's like a 1. So 1 times negative 2 means I needed to multiply to negative 2, and then I needed to add to this middle term. Remember that there's nothing there. It's implied to be a negative 1. So I have to add to negative 1. And now we just have to use our skills from 5th and 6th grade to come up with the numbers that make this true. Okay? So in this case, we needed two numbers that multiply to negative 60 and add to negative 7. In this case, you need them to multiply to negative 2 and add to negative 1. Just something I highly recommend. Try to think about the numbers that multiply first. Okay? And then we can eliminate and get to what actually adds to the correct thing. Okay? So here to multiply negative 60 and add to negative 7, you should have negative 12 and positive 5. Because negative 12 times 5 is negative 60, negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7. Okay, so in this case it should be negative 2 and positive 1. Okay, so the next step is the most important. we're going to split the middle term into the two numbers you just found right here with the variable from the term they started with. Okay, so let's show that. Then we'll bring down the rest. So I bring down the 2x squared, notice that's still my first term. I bring down the negative 30, notice that's still my first term. So that's where those come from. Switch colors emphasis here. I just found this to be negative 12 and 5. Now that's negative 12 and 5. We have to include the variable that it's representing, which is the x. So then that's where the negative 12x and the positive 5x comes from. Okay, let's show that in our other example. So I'm going to bring down that x squared. I'm going to bring down that negative 2. Okay? Then I split the middle, and I'm going to split it into these two terms I just found. Well, that's a 1x, so plus 1x, and that's a negative 2x. Okay? So now, from here, this is just like doing the 4-term factoring that we already worked on from the previous class. Okay? So from the day 6 lesson, we kind of worked through how to factor a 4-term polynomial. So that's all we're doing from here. So if you know the rest of the steps from here, we're in great shape. You put the first 2 sets in parentheses and the last 2 in parentheses. I take a GCF. Well, the GCF here should be 2x. I write it on the outside and divide. The GCF here should be a positive 5. I write on the outside and divide. The 2 inside terms should match, so they do. And then the 2 GCFs form my other factor. So again, from here down, it's what we already learned from lesson 6. So in this case, my GCF is x. I write the x outside and divide. I divide. Here I divide out a negative 2. I divide, remember a negative over a negative positive. Again, I know I'm right here if the 2 insides match, and they do. They're both x plus 1. So I write my x plus 1, and then I have the x and the negative 2 go here. Boom, there we go. That's our factoring. Okay, so from here, this is really the process, okay? Now, I just want to emphasize in a different color here. Really, the only thing that's new here is creating this and splitting this middle in red. If you get to what I just circled in blue, which is there or is here, then the rest of this process down is just a repeat of what we did with the 4-term polynomial factoring. All right, hope this helps for the practice for factoring trinomials.